I know you have doubts. Skepticism can be contagious. I wouldn't have known either before I saw the new truth and shared it with you. I wouldn't have believed it, but it was revealed so clearly. Remember the reward. This beautiful moment is upon us. Tonight is the night our faith is made real. The hardest thing is to start. Just take the step. Believe and give yourself over. I love you. I love you so much, my heart is breaking. I'm waiting for you.
Hello and welcome to Two Guys, One Necronomicon, a weekly horror review podcast where we talk about all things horror. We talk about your cult classics to your modern day trash.
And new episodes arrive every Monday at 6 a.m.
Yes, and today we will be reviewing The Invitation.
We are your hosts, Brian Hotboy LaGrasta and Shane, you'll have to beat it out of me, Smith.
I'm at a loss for words. These just keep getting more and more extreme now.
And we are here with a special guest, my brother, Damien the Eggman LaGrasta.
How's it going, everyone? Happy to be on this show and talk about this movie. It's a wild one.
It definitely is. My first thing I want to bring up is why does he get a cool nickname like the Eggman? And you have to beat it out of me.
Damien's diet consists of eggs 24/7.
That is true.
I guess I gotta start eating more eggs so I get a better nickname. Alright, so, The Invitation, wild movie.
Yeah, this is one of those movies you come across where it's so uncomfortable, it just crawls on your skin. And you have no reaction but kind of like to look away.
Yeah, especially when Pruitt's talking.
Oh my god, yeah, there's some crazy, crazy characters in this movie, and to give you a sensation of what this movie really is, it's like those experiences you have when you like walk into a supermarket and you see someone you know, but you haven't seen for a while. So you don't want to approach that person, and you hope that they don't approach you. You hope that you just go on your way and you don't have to talk about each other, because it's like, does he remember me?
Yeah, especially when it's your ex-wife who tried to kill herself after your son died.
And you're just like, oh, I want to pass this person up in the supermarket. Don't see me. Oh my god, he's walking towards me. He's coming to me. Get away.
And that's when you just turn around and run out of the store.
Correct. Just like they should have done in this movie.
Yeah.
But that never happened.
No.
So I think it's best that we just dive right in, because there's a lot to really unpack in this beautiful, beautiful invitation. So what we do here on Two Guys, One Necronomicon, today, Three Guys, One Necronomicon, we will provide a summary of the film. We will break it down in a scene-by-scene analysis with some nice offbeat commentary, and then wrap it up with a review of our movie on a scale of 1 to 10. What are our thoughts? 1 being a piece of garbage, 10 being an absolute masterpiece, and 5 being that middle point of where we might just want to watch it again, but most likely not.
So like a 10 would be like Cruel Intentions.
No, but for you, yes, I guess.
Okay. Just want to clarify that.
Okay, so this movie is about a man confronting his past after accepting his ex-wife's invitation to a dinner party, and it resurfaces ugly history and new trauma. The film was released in 2015. It was directed by Karen Kusama, and you know what else she directed?
Absolutely no idea.
Jennifer's Body.
Really? Does she have movies in between Jennifer's
She
Body?
does, but she hasn't directed many movies, but that's the only notable one.
So this is why you want to review this movie.
Jennifer's Body is a perfect movie, as I've said before on this podcast.
Yeah, no, if 6 is perfect, yeah, it's perfect.
6, okay.
Didn't that make an appearance on your top 10 vampire movies?
Yeah, and it's not even a vampire movie.
It's a succubus movie, but we'll allow it.
That's how transcendent this movie is.
I said this to the people I was watching. Never trust someone who uses the word transcendent when describing a group of people.
So you're saying not to trust the hot boy?
Yeah, I am saying don't trust Dr. Joseph.
I'm sure there's a certain level of transcending in this movie, too.
There's plenty.
So this movie stars Logan Marshall Green as Will, who's our
main
protagonist.
Yeah.
Tammy Blanchard as Eden, and Michael Huisman as David. And you might know Michael Huisman, I believe that's how you pronounce it, in such productions as
Dario Naharis in Game of Thrones, and Steve in The Haunting of Hill House.
This guy's been in some bangers.
Yes, and the main character, Will, you would know from the movie Upgrade, which is also a great movie. We open up in a car. Will and his girlfriend Kira are traveling, and that's when you see the title of the movie right away, The Invitation, which is an invite to a party his ex-wife is having with all of their close friends, because I believe they haven't seen each other in 2 years, is it?
Correct. So his ex-wife and her partner, David, were basically missing in action for 2 years. No one has seen them. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, all of their friends receive an invitation to come to their nice Hollywood house.
It is a beautiful house.
It really is.
I mean, the house is so nice. It has like a movie theater room.
It does have a movie theater room in it.
That's like the funny thing about this movie is the invitation. It doesn't really tell you what kind of party it is. It's just, I guess, a get-together.
They consider it a reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reunion of sorts. And the word invitation is an interesting play in this movie because it has a dual meaning.
You will find out later, not only is it the invite to the party, but the invitation is also let's call them a group of people.
That's fair. It's a group of people who have different views of the world.
They're situated in Mexico, and they have a leader, Dr. Joseph, who's a very trustworthy guy, and I see nothing shady about him.
No, not with a name like Dr. Joseph. I would trust this guy with my heart and kidney. They're having a drive, and Kira has the invitation in her hands, and Will you could tell he's very on edge about going to this place. This is his ex-wife. He hasn't seen her in 2 years, and he looks very uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that they hit a coyote. Is that how you pronounce it? Coyote?
It's a coyote, but we'll go coyote.
I love that coyote word.
It's a good word. But it's not good for the coyote, because this coyote is underneath the car after, so Will gets out, and he does the humane thing, and he beats it over the head with a tire iron.
I mean, it was mercy.
Yeah, it was.
I think the movie kind of sets the precedent early with this uncomfortable thing, because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if you're there with a significant other in the car and you smack into an animal, I mean, you got to put this thing down, right? So it's like somebody has to watch you.
Yeah, he
just
gets
beat this thing.
He gets out of the car. She stays in the car as he just levels into it with a tire iron. It's hard to watch, but it was the right thing to do. It was squealing. It was in pain.
And as Damien said, this sets the tone of uncomfortability of this movie, where like this is actually probably the most comfortable scene in the movie.
Yeah, I would agree.
The guy mercy killing a coyote,
and this is just an awkward car ride up to the house as well, because you find out Will gives like a little underlying information about his relationship with his ex-wife. She was in a support group, I believe, a grief group. We'll find out why they were grieving, but in the grief group, she met David, her new partner. So they were kind of doing stuff while they were already married.
It's a whole situation that only gets worse.
And then the opening credits roll, and there's a very ominous score that kind of takes you through Hollywood, through Los Angeles, as they get up to Eden's and David's place.
Pull up to the house, knock on the door, go in.
They walk right in.
That's true, they walk right in. What guests are there already? Is it basically everyone that we're going to meet?
So the guests in the living room walk into the house. He sees a flashback of a boy at a table.
Yeah.
But he sees Gina, Ben, Claire, and Tommy and Miguel.
And one thing I will point out, this is actually Will's old house. So when Will was married to Eden, this is where they lived. And when Eden came back after missing for 2 years, she lives in the same home.
This is her home. You find out after the movie that her family is wealthy.
With a house like that.
But the folks there, they're happy to see Will. They haven't seen him in a while. Tommy, he's a gay couple with Miguel.
Yes.
He's like, oh, I like your new dirty dish rag look. Because Will's got like this good long hair, very silky with this nice beard. Great hair to beard ratio.
It's tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. While Will's sitting down and he's, seeing everyone, he kind of looks off to the distance, and what does he see? A woman with no pants in the dark down the hall.
Yeah, she has a shirt on and no pants. Literally, she's naked from waist down.
It's interesting, because the way it's filmed, you don't really see anything, because it's like in the shadows, but you could clearly tell she's not wearing pants.
And I guess this is like the first time where you could say, well, she's probably not a member of his friend group, right? For all these people that were invited. So I'm not saying this would, raise any flags, but it's certainly abnormal to see this.
Well, yeah, because if you're going to a party that's from your ex-wife, her new fiance, and then all your friends are already in the living room, it's weird to see a random girl with no pants. I would have some questions as well.
At this point
his ex-wife Eden walks down the stairs in this like long white dress, and she goes and approaches Will, hugs him, and she mentions how much she misses him. He mentions how much he misses her, and he mentions like, the house hasn't changed a bit. And you can tell she's got like a glow about her. She's definitely different, and it's very evident to Will.
Yeah, she seems very happy for someone who is in grief counseling for an extended period of time. At this point, we find out that she's spent the last 2 years in Mexico.
And then the partner David comes along, and I'm waiting for like an awkward confrontation, but David is very overtly friendly. Goes right up and he's like, coming for the real thing, Will. He gives him a hug.
Which is very strange for that to be a guy who's now married to your ex-wife.
He seems really eager about tonight. He's like, we have a lot to celebrate tonight, Will. Glad you can make it.
And that's when you're wondering, what are they going to celebrate? Because apparently it's just a get-together, so...
They offer everybody drinks, and what do? They bring out the infamous 85 Rothschild wine.
That's what it is?
When you start throwing out 85 Rothschild, you gotta party.
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
They were saying, I'm not sure what the price was, but one of the ladies joked about it being several $100,000 or something like that.
Gold Cro-Mag.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, considering their living room probably cost more than my life.
Yeah. So the naked girl then kind of runs up to the group, and she's now clothed in a dress.
Yes. You find out this naked girl was indeed, her name is Sadie. She had also been spending time in Mexico. That is where she met Eden and David. So they're friends. No one else in the room, though, knows who Sadie is.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird off the bat. And Sadie mentions that she's staying with them, and, that it's fun, They have fun. And she, kind of giggles, and...
Yeah, she seems kind of off.
You can just tell this is one of those free love hippie kind of girls.
Yes, don't trust her.
But she mentions, we hope that nobody minds that she's crashing the party. And she kind of looks over at Will, and she's like, they've told me so much about you.
Yeah.
Will
oh, boy.
So uncomfortable.
To where that leads to later on, it's just like, ugh.
And after she says this, there's an awkward silence, as there is so many times in this movie.
Yeah, I think is that when he gets up and he's like, I gotta get some water?
No, not yet. This is when Kira's like, we hit a coyote on the way up
here.
here.
Yeah, that's right.
To break the silence.
Kira throws that in real quick.
They're like, how was that not the first thing you told us as soon as you came in?
I know. And then David's like, it's a good thing you did that, Will. It shows mercy. And then Will asks for permission to look around the house, and he leaves the room.
That's when he does it, okay.
David goes over to Sadie, and Sadie whispers, wow, and he's like, I know. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Something is being planned here.
Yeah. They probably just want to hook Sadie up with Will, even though Will already has a girlfriend.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
This is Will drinking water from the kitchen tap, because everybody likes to drink from the tap.
Well, if you live in a multi-million-dollar mansion in the Hollywood Hills, I'm assuming the tap water is good to drink.
Will kind of keeps getting flashbacks throughout this movie, and in this scene, he gets a flashback of Eden cutting herself as he's trying to stop her.
Yes. That's where you realize their marriage was probably put on the rocks during the attempted suicide.
Yeah.
Which is also why she probably went to grief counseling. I mean, you don't know what led to the suicide yet, but obviously the suicide would put her into grief counseling, I would assume.
That's why I like this movie. They're setting a lot of things up for you to find out through the dialogue.
Yeah.
You could just tell she went through an intense amount of grief, just from their interaction together, him looking at her wrist. And
Insufferable grief that would lead her to try to kill herself.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which the grief is very bad when you do find out what exactly it is, which we will lead to. Eden comes and grabs Will on the shoulder, and he's startled by that. And that's kind of when they catch up and they talk about how much Eden has changed since the last time Will had seen her.
Exactly. And he immediately takes her hand and looks at her wrists, and she's wearing a bracelet.
Yeah, to cover up the scars.
And she's like, I got this in Mexico.
So I think it's pretty notable even throughout this movie just to see how observant Will really is, because this was his house at one point that he was sharing with his wife Eden.
He knows every nook and cranny of the house. There's no doubt.
So he does notice that there's bars on the windows.
Yes, he does bring that up.
Her.
He does. He's on high alert, and that's one of the things that he points out, and he just thinks that's kind of odd. Why did they have bars on the window? They didn't have bars on the window when he was living there.
And that's why I love Will in this film, because he brings up the bars, and then there's a scene a little later on, we're describing more later, but he sees David locking the door to lock them in, and he's worried about that. He's like, why are you doing that? Every little weird thing that seems to happen, Will's the only one who notices, And even when he brings it up to everyone, everyone's like, you're overthinking
I know,
it.
that's basically what happens throughout this entire film. Will finds out looks at something and he's like, oh wait, this is weird. And everyone's like, no, it's not, dude. You're thinking too much. You're letting your mind
Drink
run
the
ahead.
wine, Will. Don't worry about anything.
Okay, so at this point, Ben also comes into the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Eden's kind of mentioning to Ben, she's telling him pain is optional. He's like, this is how I got over my intense grief. And she's able to find it, and she wants Will to find it too. Ben's just kind of like, why didn't anybody tell him about this newfound philosophy now? Eden laughs. She's like, it's really simple. All negative emotions are just chemical reactions, and they are completely changeable.
And then Ben goes on to talk to Will. They talk about Ben's life and his wife, Amanda, who Ben says, yeah, they kind of hate each other now, but the sex is very great and very angry.
Absolutely. Very, very explosive.
Does he actually use the word explosive?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But Eden tells Ben, she says, people have the capability to expel negative emotions and get rid of their pain. And then Ben makes a joke. He says, well, you can just shit out your pain. And then Eden, you can tell, looks upset at this comment. She shrugs it off. He's like, oh, you're just not interested in what I have to say. And then he's like, sorry, but it does sound kind of crazy, Eden. And then she just rips him right across the face.
I forgot about that.
A real hard rip. He's like, oh, what the hell? And then she just kind of leaves the kitchen. And then that's when he has this private talk with
Will.
Things are not going well with his wife, and she's not here tonight.
Yeah. Right after this, a new guest arrives to the house.
So throughout this whole movie, Gina, one of the characters, her boyfriend is named Choi.
He hasn't arrived yet.
And everyone's like, where the heck is Choi? Choi's not there. So they think that this newcomer is Choi.
But it is not Choi. It is indeed Damien's favorite character in this film.
Easily my favorite character, too. Because he's the biggest outlier besides Sadie here.
He is so creepy.
He's like this hulking man that is so much older. He's an outlier. His name is Pruitt.
Right, but I think before we get into that, I just want to mention something about this whole premise with Choi, that Choi's missing.
Yeah.
And, you're in this really expensive, I would say, villa in Los Angeles, right? Mm-hmm. They play on this idea that there's no cell phone service up here.
Yes,
they can't get in touch with Choi. Mm-hmm. Maybe because, I don't know, there's no cell service or...
Yeah, that's essentially what they say.
They make a bunch of reference to that, and it actually plays into the movie a little bit later on.
It does, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this was an issue they had even predating tonight. I think Will mentions that they had spotty service.
He might have. I might have just missed that.
I believe he does. Pruitt comes in, everyone's like, who the hell is this guy? He enters the living room, takes a look at Will, and then Sadie runs up to him, gives him a hug, and David introduces him to the group. And then the first thing he says, he looks at everybody, he's like, evening. And then he walks up to Eden, hugs her. Ben offers Pruitt a drink, because everyone's trying to stay cordial with the newcomer. And he's like, I'll drink anything, but it's got to be diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could even tell from this point, those two characters, from Will's perspective, they really don't belong there, but the personalities are just really different, because everybody in the party is I would say maybe sub-30s, maybe a little bit older. But you're talking three different age ranges between Sadie, this group of friends, and now this other guy, this hulking man Pruitt that walks in.
Well, picture you're at a party and your friends didn't tell you that they invited two rando people that just look creepy at the party.
They're like, we're going to just drop it on you now. We invite the Manson family over.
Exactly. That's kind of what happens here.
Yeah.
In a way. That's the feeling.
You could just tell they're off. Sadie and Pruitt. They don't seem like normal people. Just the way they act and talk. And
you can kind of get that, all these characters, some of them are happy, some of them are going through some stuff. Ben's obviously going through some stuff. Will is definitely going through some stuff. And you can see David and Eden just look elated. And these other two characters, they look overjoyed as well. Whereas everyone else is just, just trying to catch up. Semblance of a good time. Yeah. A lot of them, honestly, they're going for Will.
Yeah.
They know what Will's been through. They haven't seen him in a while, and they want to reconnect with him.
Will doesn't come back into the living room yet, though. Will decides to go look around the house a little bit. And he goes into Eden's bedroom, and that's when he does a little snooping. And he finds pills, unlabeled pills, in her dresser, and he takes out 2 of them and pockets them.
Gina wants to call Choi at this point. Eden's like, the bill slipped through the cracks while they were in Mexico. She has to call them up to reconnect the landline. David tells Gina her best shot for service would be in the backyard. At this point, Will notices him lock the front door. Because he calls it out. He's like, why are you locking the front door? And he's like, we had to break in the canyon. This is why we have bars on the windows. This is why the door's locked. And Will's like, I didn't hear about that. Ben kind of calls out. He's like, well, a man can lock down his house if he wants to. David kind of succumbs. He's like, all right, fine, I'll unlock the door if it makes you feel more comfortable. And then Eden asks him to go out and get the firewood. While he's getting the firewood, he has a flashback outside. And the flashback is he kind of hears kids playing outside.
Oh, yeah.
Hears his son playing with other boys. This is where he sees Eden taking something and putting it in the bottom drawer, which is the pills.
Right.
That he retrieves from her room.
And then as he's retrieving those pills, David walks in and almost catches him taking those pills out of the drawer.
Yeah, he's like waiting like right outside the door for him. But he's kind of like, you take your time, come back to our group when you're ready. They're kind of like giving him some support because he's like trying to, obviously Will's reminiscing about his experience.
Well, it's got to be weird being in the home where your wife had tried to commit suicide 2 years earlier.
While Will is kind of like in the bedroom, he's having another flashback of him in the bathtub with Eden.
Yes.
And this is where you see kind of Ty come in. And this is a happy scene. This is like a kind of like an insight to how Will and Eden were before the event. And the reason why I'm calling it the event is because we don't know what it is yet, but something bad's happened that changed Will's behavior to this point.
Yes, and at this point, though, you can kind of infer, obviously, something had happened to their son. Because in this flashback, obviously, you see the three of them together, and then, now 2 years later, there's the two of them and no son.
And you're getting all these flashbacks of, like, him seeing the son in the house, him hearing the voice. By the way, I never got your thoughts. What would you do if one of your friends had barred windows and... I mean, I can justify locking the door. I mean, I think that makes total sense.
But it's the way they're locking it, because they're locking it that you can't get out of it without a key.
That's true.
Which, I mean, yeah, everyone locks their door, but if I saw you locking all the doors where it's like, I would need your key to get out of your house, that'd be a little creepy.
You get that feeling where there's no escape.
Exactly. You essentially become a, like, caged animal. Like, you can't get out. There's no way out.
So at this point, Will hears a scream coming from the living room. He goes over there, and you see Regina. She points at Sadie, and she's like, these guys are in a cult. No subtlety, just says it.
Usually the C word doesn't come out until, in these kind of movies, until, maybe 3/4 of the way through, but yeah, you get it right away here.
This one, they're like 15, 20 minutes into the film. Yeah, it's a cult.
Yeah, and
they deny it.
Of course, everyone who's in a cult denies it, but they're like, it's not a cult, it's something called the Invitation, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we know the Invitation. We have our coworkers are in the. Like, people mention the Invitation is like a popular
cult.
Well, they don't refer to it as a cult.
I know. No one who's in a cult calls it a cult.
No, yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah,
I love David's explanation. He's like, guys, it's more like science and not some religious cult. And that's exactly what it isn't. There's no science to the Invitation, and it definitely has a religious, spiritual element to it.
Without a doubt.
So that's total BS.
So I think the idea, and I think David does refer to it at some point, but it's mainly like it gathers everybody who have been through some severe, intense trauma, maybe through losing someone. Actually, I think that's entirely what it is. Losing someone.
For most of the characters. I don't think David's was through losing someone, right?
No, it was something else that we'll mention.
Yeah.
It was,
okay.
You're right. For the
most part, because Pruitt's going to give us a story very soon. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, so I think it's Miguel as the character who prompts David to show them the video. I think he asks, what goes on with the Invitation. It's like, as a matter of fact,
I have this great video for you.
I literally love this. They live in this really ritzy place up in LA. They're in the living room with this ginormous fireplace, and he shows them the video on this little laptop.
Well, do you even ever see a TV?
No, you don't.
There's like no TV in the house,
No.
so.
But everyone seems to be interested. Well, I think Claire is like, oh, you're trying to recruit us, but everyone's kind of like really intrigued to see what the invitation's about.
Yes. So essentially, the guy on the video is a guy named Dr. Joseph. And he explains how trauma and grief can kind of be like put away, like basically hidden in a way. And he just talks about that.
He mentions it's his life goal to rewrite trauma in order to live a more connected existence. Those are his exact words. He mentions to them that they're not alone, and wherever they are, they transcend.
And that's when I stopped trusting him.
And I love when he says transcend, because he lifts his right hand up in the air, like he's just shooting himself into outer space.
Okay. If someone tells you they could get you to transcend, just run the other way.
I think I'm going to use that more in everyday speech.
I got to get out of here.
There's an incredible lack of subtlety here because it's just screaming cult. I mean,
yeah, it is. Because it is.
They're not even trying to hide it.
And it plays this like odd but kind of uplifting, mysterious music, so it really sets the tone. And then the most interesting part of the video happens.
Oh my god.
You see Dr. Joseph talking to this woman named Annie who is definitely dying.
Oh yeah.
The doctor asks her who she's going to see. She's like, her husband James and her father. And he goes on to say, they'll all be there. And all that pain, all that grief will be over soon because she's made a choice to renounce it. He tells her to get ready. And then there's another woman in the room at this time, too, who's kind of watching over the dying woman. And she's like, oh, I can feel your spirit. I can feel the spirit of the woman who's dying. And you just see the woman literally die on camera.
Yeah. The group doesn't take that too well. Claire's definitely freaked out at the video. They kind of argue like the semantics of what they watched.
Yeah, so here we go again. Another case where everybody's just disgustingly uncomfortable. I remember the first time watching this, especially this part, I was like, you go to your friend's dinner party and they show you a video of somebody dying.
Yeah.
Because everyone's thinking, like, this is the purpose of them bringing us here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think one of them even says, so you're recruiting us to a cult.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's happening, essentially. And like, no, we're just trying to show you what we've been up to.
Yeah. And David kind of, like, at this, to try to, like, ease this tension, he's like, listen, this is what the invitation's about. No darkness, it's just reunion. Just a reunion.
Oh, boy, reunion.
Yeah. And see, this is why I love Will, because then Will's like, literally says, why would you show anyone that at a dinner party?
Just cuts right through the BS.
Yeah.
I love it.
I literally wrote that. Doesn't take any of the bull they're saying. Like,
it's true.
He's just like, what are you doing?
And then David mentions his story.
Yeah.
This is where you find out he technically didn't lose anybody, at least to our knowledge, but he mentions that his pain turned him into a coked up, out of control record producer. He was a slave to his own grief, but not since he met Dr. Joseph, who taught him that he doesn't have to be afraid anymore. He's been freed. Pruitt shoots him an amen, brother.
Yeah, Pruitt. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about Pruitt's story.
Eden mentions that she was gonna die. She was in a very dark place. She was gonna die, but now she's not angry anymore. She's happy, and she won't have anyone try to take that away from her. Mm-hmm. And at this point, Will gets very upset. He cuts her off immediately. He's like, "Is it that easy for you? Is it really that easy for you, Eden? Because obviously." Something happened. She looks completely different from the way she's handling this event than he is.
Well, because it seems like he's obviously still dealing with the loss of his son, whereas she's like, I had a son. And so at that point, that's when the doorbell rings. And Pruitt goes to answer it, I believe.
Yeah, Pruitt's like, I got this.
Yeah, and you don't see, though, who's at the door.
Is it Troy?
Don't know.
You're right. You actually don't know who it is.
I don't think they actually ever reveal who was at the door during that
David
scene.
writes it off as just people looking to party on foot.
I have a theory of what it might have been. I'd rather talk about that towards the end.
Put on your tinfoil later on.
It's probably complete tinfoil, but we'll talk about that.
And Will's observing this because he's observing everything.
Oh yeah, Will never stops. But he kind of gets interrupted while he's observing because this is when Gina comes up to him. And Gina's like, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. That's why I like that you say he's observing, because Gina's like, you're not listening to a word I'm saying. Because he is staring at the door.
Yeah. And this is where you kind of know, Gina's like, we know we have not had many opportunities, but we really should have reached out. We're happy that you're here because we want to be more part of your life and get you through this event. Will kind of looks over, and Sadie's staring right at him, so he's just so awkward. And then the scene transitions. Will is talking to Miguel in, I believe, the kitchen, mentioning what he took from.
Yeah, probably the second kitchen. Because there's 1,000 rooms in this house.
Yeah.
So he's talking to Miguel about the pills, because Miguel, I'm assuming, is a doctor.
He's a doctor.
Yeah.
He mentions that it's a barbiturate. It's dangerous like anything else can be dangerous. Nothing really out of the norm.
Yeah, it's weird that the pill box wasn't labeled, but other than that, it's just it's a drug. It's nothing crazy. Is this already when, as soon as they go back to the other room, he tells David, Will thinks you're on pills.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
Right away. Yeah. Will thinks you're on pills, and he's like, he takes it as a joke. He's like, oh, look, I know everyone thinks they're crazy, but, what we believe in is practical. And then Miguel mentions to Tommy and Will that, this group's a little Manson-y.
What I said earlier. It's like inviting the Manson family to just a regular dinner party.
I just want to, I guess, through this whole movie, you're just trying to think of if Will is being overly perceptive or if he's being, if it's warranted.
Is he just on edge because he's in this house for the first time in 2 years? Or are they really just this off?
Yeah, it's because, obviously, we said he's experienced trauma the same way Eden has, and they're handling it completely differently. And he's lived there, so he's kind of seeing the way David's doing things around the house, and they're much different from the way that he was dealing with things around the house. David appears on, they have a second floor, and there's, a balcony kind of overlooking the living room. Look, I apologize for the video. I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm trying to force my ideas onto you.
He would never do that.
No.
Good guy, salt of the earth. Is this when they played the game?
Of course.
Good, because this is a good game. He starts describing it as a never have I ever unfriended reference, but he says Instead, we're just going to name a desire we have.
Yeah, the game is called I Want. So everyone's going
Yeah.
to mention something that a desire or a sensation or even an object thing that they want.
And Sadie is super excited. She's like, I'm going first. And then she just wants to say how she loves everyone.
And she's so cliche. She calls every person out individual names.
I
She's
love you.
I love you all.
And she loves them so much, she kisses Gina on the mouth.
Now, Shane's finger is wiggling, but this is not a passion bump for
Whoa!
me. I'm sorry, it's not.
You got Sadie, you got Gina, you got a nice
Don't worry,
kid.
our moment's coming, Shane.
What's the second round? What does Gina want?
Gina's like, I want some of David's old Coke, that old Coke fiend.
My favorite part of this scene is David's like, he just goes to the plant and he's got Coke! Like,
Tosses it to her. She's like, I'm just kidding. She's like, no, you weren't. You weren't kidding. You wanted the Coke.
no, do that Coke.
This is a game of complete honesty.
Yeah.
David even says he wants honesty above all. So if you want Coke, he's getting you Coke.
Yeah, because he wants everyone to be honest. He wants those social constraints and all of these embarrassments to be completely stripped away. All the things that would hold them down.
Yes. I think it's even, one of them says like, wow, it's a bad rehab to have your Coke in your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I love Ben. He's pretty funny for like a minor character.
Gina's kind of happy. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, got some Coke.
Got some Coke. The party's looking a little up.
Everybody's laughing. All of a sudden,
Pruitt goes.
Pruitt stands up. I want to tell you about my wife, Margaret.
He talks just as direct as Brian is saying it. Like that is,
The room goes silent.
and this scene is so awkward and unnerving when Pruitt tells his story.
This is like the moment where like Conor McGregor's like, who the fuck is that guy? So, and this is kind of an off-put story, but he mentions he was married for 8 years and he loved his wife very, very deeply. And he's like, she was all light. And then Miguel asks, did she pass away? And Pruitt's like, yeah, she did. And then he goes into the story. He'd been drinking. And they came up from a dinner in the kitchen and they got into a stupid fight. One of those stupid fight over dishes this time. And they started yelling and he went to pour another drink. She went to stop him, and something just gave, and he turned around and he hit her as hard as he could. And her knees buckled, she hit her head, and then she was just staring at him. And Pruitt puts it like she was trying to get back up. And I love the way he's kind of telling the story. He's trying to make it like his wife's a prairie dog, and she's kind of like trying to like lift herself out of a hole. But she just collapsed and then was just gone. And you knew the story was gonna be bad from the moment he's like, we'd been drinking. He'd been drinking.
Oh yeah, you knew it was. I mean, I didn't think he like punched his wife to death, essentially, but like, yeah, it's what it was.
And once again, the room goes completely silent.
Pruitt even says the invitation saved him after that incident. He went to prison for
7 years.
7 years, and then he found the invitation, and that saved him. And the group still is just kind of staring at him. Like,
They're stunned. I think they're completely stunned at this point.
I think Claire, she barely talks in this film, but she's so emotive with her, like, she always looks the most uncomfortable.
She expresses it too.
Yeah, I don't blame her. Like, that guy literally that you just met that night, actually, like, 2 hours ago.
He's a murderer.
Yeah, he's like, he literally killed his wife.
Yeah. But he mentions, he's like, prison didn't rehab him. The invitation rehabbed him. He's now cured, and not a day goes by that he doesn't think about his wife. He doesn't grieve, because he's chosen to let those useless emotions go, and he's going to see her again in a better place. Much better than the place he's in now.
I hate everything he said there, because he should have to live with what he did. It's not like she died of cancer and he's dealing with it. He killed her. And then his ideal that, like, he's going to see her in a better place. Well, first of all, I don't think she's going to want to see him.
All these stories, all these things, Will just looks like, what the hell is going on right now? He's like, this is so strange.
That's like, I don't have the trauma Will has, but I feel like Will in that situation.
Of course.
Where it's just like, I need to, like, get out of here, but I can't.
He's like, how are you guys off-putting this tremendous amount of grief? He's like, I'm going through this, and I don't think I have the capability. And it's almost offensive to think that
you should.
Someone can or should. So he's like borderline offended by this. But this is my thoughts about the invitation, in all honesty. Just thinking about it from a base construct, it's not technically like a bad idea. Like, everybody experiences grief in different ways.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to see ones they love again. I just think it's the approach and the style of everybody and the way they go about it that's very awkward.
Like, at least Eden's makes sense, because she's mourning over the loss of her son. You don't know how he died. It's just tough on her, and you do feel bad for her. I agree with Will where he says you can't just forget. You need to get over the grieving and, like, but you can't forget he ever existed, which is what Eden's almost trying to do.
Yeah, moving on, but not forgetting.
Exactly. That's actually the perfect way to put it.
It's Eden's turn to play the game now. And Eden's like, I want to do something I've always wanted to do. I want to kiss Ben.
Yeah. And they actually start with just a small kiss. But I think it's Eden goes in for a little more.
She's like, nah, yep. Ben, come in for the real thing, big boy.
Now, is this what you were going to consider?
Wiggle that finger, Shane, because I think it's time for a passion bump. Shane, what you got there?
Oh, just my wiggling finger.
Ooh, why is it wiggling, Shane?
Well, because something's getting a little hot over here.
What do you mean?
A little...
Ow!
Passion bump! Passion bump! Passion bump!
My G.
Me personally, kind of thought the Sadie Gina one deserved it a little more.
I actually don't think any of them deserved it. There were not much of anything.
You're right there. Well, there is a scene that could have been passionate later on. A little poolside scene.
Oh, yeah, okay. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding, by the way. That was gross. I hated that scene. So I think it's at this point, Claire's just like, I want to go.
Yeah, she's extremely uncomfortable, and she wants to leave. And David tries to do everything to convince her to stay. He's like, I'll get you another drink. Let's just stay.
And Will is just like, David, if she wants to fucking leave, let her leave.
Yeah.
Stop trying to control everything. Just let people do what they want to do.
There's an awkward silence here again, because this movie is just full of awkward silences. Mm-hmm. And David says, fine, of course. Go.
Yeah. And then Will, being the only sane character for most of the movie, is like, I'll walk you to your car.
He's like, well, it's 40 feet. I'll be fine.
And that's when...
Well, of course, Pruitt's car is parked right behind her.
Of course. So Pruitt's like, oh, I gotta move my car. So he goes outside with Claire. And Will, being the hawk that he is, does not take his eyes off of the situation.
Make sure he gets a nice window view of this whole scene take place.
Yes. And now, this scene is awesome. You see Pruitt's car move. You see Claire back up. You see Claire pull forward. Alright, so the car's positioned where you only see the back seat. The front seat is now obscured by a bush. And Pruitt's like, oh wait, Claire. And he runs to the front seat, and then David stops Will from looking out the window.
So you never get to see what happens in that
situation.
Yeah.
Now, that's why you're thinking either Claire just left, Will's just been overthinking everything, or Will's been right this whole time, and Pruitt did something before Claire took off.
Exactly.
Because you never get to see the car actually leave.
But the conversation between Dave and Will here is kind of interesting, because David mentions, it's important to Eden that he's there tonight because they chose him. And Will's like, you chose me? And then David's like, we just wanted you to be here tonight, and we're kind of upset that you're so suspicious of our hospitality.
Well, David even says, Will, you seem a bit off. And the whole time, it's been the exact opposite way.
Yeah.
So at this point, after this conversation, they finally go upstairs to have some dinner. And it's this long table, probably like 17 courses of food on the table. This is when Will starts to think about his son at dinner. He starts to have kind of flashes about his son while they're all sitting around the dinner table. He starts calling Kira's name, because it kind of starts going fuzzy.
Yeah.
And he keeps going, Kira. And that's when you're like, did they drug the food, or what's going on? And then he just walks to the balcony. It was just all him, kind of like an episode while sitting around the dinner table.
Yeah, and it could also be he's just actually really not ready for this party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That must have been a really traumatic experience, but I guess we'll reveal at a certain point later on. But he even mentions to David, he's like, I might just not have been ready to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Will right now is walking through the house. He walks downstairs and he hears a woman kind of laughing. He peeks into Sadie's room and she's screaming inaudibly and just making weird facial expressions. It's very strange.
She starts moving her mouth and then stopping and making a weird face. And then Sadie does look up and see that Will is watching her do this.
Yeah, so he walks outside at this point. Guess who follows him out?
Oh, Sadie.
Sadie has to follow him out. And she approaches Will and she's like, oh, things aren't going so great with Kira. And he's like, where did you hear that? Where'd you get that impression?
Yeah, it's that's not accurate.
Well, she seems real distant. And he's like, no, she's great.
Yeah.
It's like real cut and dry.
So then Sadie does what any rational human would do, and she's like, we could fuck right here.
It's like how it was in Mexico.
Yeah. Will's like, no, I'm going to go back inside. And she's like, well, you can even hurt me if you want. Yeah, he just leaves. He kind of just leaves, right? Like,
yeah, and Tommy has a quick conversation with Will outside. He says that you're weird, dude. Your mind's going away with you. We love you, bro, but chill out.
Yeah, and that's when Will thinks there's something wrong, which is what leads Tommy to say all this.
Right? Why isn't anybody talking about it? Something weird is happening here.
Yes. Even though, it could go either way, the whole time I was like, Will's right.
Of course.
Everything is off.
But everybody's drinking wine. That's the thing.
Well, yeah.
There's only 2 people not drinking wine at this party.
Yeah, and Gina's now on coke. So, there's a lot going on. So, Tommy walks out, and that's when Will finally gets self-service.
Correct.
And he realizes he has a message from Choi. And Choi's message is that he arrived to the party early at 7. And this whole time, the thing has been, Choi has been running late. They never mentioned that Choi had gotten here early.
Will mentions early on, because everyone's like, oh, you get no self-service. He's like, self-service is spotty. Mm-hmm. He knows where to get self-service. That's why he walks outside in the first place. He wanted to make a call.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so right away, he knows Choi arrived at this house before everybody else.
Yeah.
So he's immediately suspicious.
So I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, though. Choi has a reputation of being unreliable, though, and I think that's what that's what they kind of play on this entire movie.
Which we didn't mention, which is why they say, "Oh, he's just late again." And
classic
stuff like that.
Choi.
Yeah, so Choi is like a very unreliable person. When he says he's going to be there, he'll probably be hours late or something. But in this case, he gets the text saying that that Choi was supposed there at 7 o'clock, so he was early to the party.
So this is when Will then goes back to the dinner table. He sits down. He doesn't get to say anything because the lights go out. And everyone's like, oh, what's going on? And then Eden and David bring up a cake.
Miguel's birthday is coming up next week. They got to celebrate.
Hell yeah. He's a doctor. Got to celebrate his birthday.
Blows out the candles. The lights go back on. And then Will's just like, where's Choi? No subtlety. Gets right to the point.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So where is Choi, guys?
This is an awesome conversation because David and Eden are like, we haven't seen him. And then tensions kind of get heated. He's like, why is everybody acting so polite? And then Gina asks Eden, she's like, what is going on? Where's Choi? I haven't seen him. I'm like, where is he? If he was supposed to be here. Prue was like, well, Will, what do you think's happening here? And he was like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, I love it.
He points it out. Who the hell are you? Where's Choi? He keeps going back to saying, where's Choi?
Because he then does bring up the message that Choi left him a voicemail. Choi was here at 7. Where is Choi?
Because I guess the hospitality is overbearingly, polite. I guess I would say.
I guess it comes to a point where you like people to be nice. You don't trust people that are overly nice because you think they have ulterior motives.
Yeah, and Will sums up his entire position to this point. He's like, well, we don't hear from you guys for 2 years. You're all smiles. You're spewing this jargon. You have Pruitt and Sadie here, and you're part of a cult.
Where's Choi? Funny thing is, Choi shows up, and that's when Will is just like, oh, fuck, maybe it is me. Maybe I have been.
Will internalizes that, and then he starts apologizing.
Yes, because now, even as an audience member, you're like, oh, shit, maybe this whole movie was just Will's grief being too much to be back. He has overthought everything.
I think that's the cool part about this film. You're constantly juggling that. Like, Will's juggling it.
Yeah.
Because Will's the perfect character because you put yourself immediately in his shoes. I think a lot of people have been in awkward moments like this, except that this lasts for a long time because he has to kind of stay there. Or he feels like Damien mentioned that social construct that he can't leave. He's got to stay and sit through the whole thing.
Exactly. Unless you're Claire, and then she just got the hell out of there.
Rightfully so. She was very uncomfortable.
So Will's apologizing. Choi's there. He says hi to the group, and Will goes downstairs to splash water on his face because he's just like, he's had it.
He washes his hands. He washes his face. And then there's the flashback of him holding his son's hands,
washing his son's hands.
So he's constantly getting these.
And he tells
flashbacks.
his son to wash it for 10 seconds, which, correction, it's 20 seconds because we have COVID-19.
Exactly. So again, Will goes back outside. Kira meets him out there.
I love the talk
She's
that Will and Kira have
We
here.
can just leave, and he's like, no. Now we can't leave.
Yeah.
My son is dead. Where do I put that?
Because this is when he really starts to vent.
Exactly.
Not vent, just let his soul out about his dead son.
This is where we actually kind of find out a little bit. We're not given the whole picture of how his son died, but
you never really are. You're giving most of the details, but you're never actually shown exactly what happens.
I should have been watching more closely that day, and there was another kid. It was another kid that Ty loved, and they were just playing, and he shouldn't let him have the bat. It's oh gosh.
Yeah. So what you can draw from this is they were just two kids playing, and he must have swung the bat and hit him in the head or, something like that. And
this is totally relatable for someone who's lost somebody.
Yeah.
And is this something that's out of his circumstance, but he's blaming himself for it?
Exactly. Well, he's a parent. He's supposed to be the one protecting the kid, and he feels like he failed.
Yeah, and this is a sad thing that Will says. Kira's like, you couldn't have changed what have happened, and he's like, I've been waiting to die since the moment it happened. This invitation philosophy is like perfect for Will in a way, but he thinks it would be almost a sin for him to move away from his son, like let his son's memory escape him.
And I agree with him. He needs to recover from the loss to where he can function, but he should never forget who his son was. I respect everything that Will has done.
And Kira tries to be the voice of reason. She's like, look, moving forward is not a betrayal. And then he's like, look at Eden. Kira, look at Eden. Is that what moving forward looks like? Kira mentions that the only way is that they can help each other to get through this. And Will's like, I love you, but I don't think that you can help me. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of hurt, and she walks inside.
Yes. Will then decides to walk to his son's room. He's looking at his son's stuff. When he first walks into his son's room, it's actually the son's room. Like, you see all the toys, it's the son's bed.
All the toys are on the floor. Like, everything's out. It's like nothing was touched. But if they got over it, wouldn't you think that they would move the stuff?
Well, no, it's not actually like that, though. Because remember, after that happens, he pans back, and it's just him sitting in the regular office room with the masks on the wall, and there's the desk with the computer on it.
Oh, it's okay.
So when he walks in, it's just in his imagination that it's the son's room.
I thought that was a completely different room that he
Oh, no, it is the same room.
They renovated it into an office, like an office room.
Gotcha.
When he walks in, he doesn't even see what it is now. He just sees his son's room.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
What snaps him out of that is he sees David in the backyard lighting the red candle.
David walks out and takes this lantern outside and kind of posts it kind of like at the edge of the yard. Mm-hmm. And the edge of the yard is obviously it's overlooking like the LA skyline. And it's this red lantern with this red light. Very eerie looking light. And then you see David, and he's kind of like looking over LA for a couple of seconds, and then walks back in the house.
And that's when he kind of snaps out of it. It's back to the regular room. He's looking at like the masks and stuff on the wall. But yeah. I know he goes right to the computer, right?
No, he looks through the desk drawer.
Yes.
And he picks up the laptop, and it's like he doesn't even do any surfing. He opens the laptop and finds the video he needs to see.
This video is Dr. Joseph giving the quote that you heard at the beginning of this episode.
This is Dr. Joseph saying, tonight is the night their faith is made real. Believe, give yourself over. My heart is breaking, and he's waiting for everybody.
Will takes this like everyone else does. This is a mass suicide night.
Yeah,
this is the cult's mass suicide night.
Something is very off about tonight. But guess who knocks at the door? Pruitt. He's like, enough is enough, Will. He doesn't say that, but that's the impression I get from him.
No, it is. Pruitt's essentially like, get your ass back upstairs.
Pruitt's the enforcer.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
That's kind of why he's there.
So he walks Will back to the party, kind of like this slow motion shot, and everybody's pouring a glass of wine, and they pass the wine around, and Will observes everybody particularly close. And it's interesting, David pours a glass of wine, and he hands it over to Will. Mm-hmm. You then see a shot of David kissing Eden, putting his head on hers, and this is kind of interesting because he never got physically close with Eden this entire night until this moment. And then he kind of gives a toast. He's he looks at everybody there, and he's like, we're all happy that you're here with Eden tonight. Take a moment, look at each other. Really look at each other. Let's raise a glass to a better world, to peace.
And that's when Will just slaps the drinks out of Kira's hands and just says, no one drink it. No one drink it.
Sadie's just like,
you ruined it.
You ruined everything. And then Pruitt kind of walks over to calm Will down. Sadie runs at him. She's so upset. She runs right at him.
She's scratching him.
Yeah, she's scratching the shit out of him. And then to get her off of him, he
channels his inner Pruitt.
It's true, and he freaking tosses her into this cabinet.
She hits her head.
$1 million babies on the ground. Not really $1 million babies, but definitely hits her hard.
Yeah, literally what Pruitt did to his wife. And everyone's like, oh no, what have you done? They're all rushing to Sadie because she's literally bleeding from the head.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Miguel goes into full ER George Clooney 911 mode. He's rip out the first aid kit. Somebody call 911. And then you hear Kira in the background. She's not breathing. Miguel's so Sadie's breathing. She's not dead. And then Kira's no, Gina. Camera pans to Gina. She's foaming out of her mouth because she drank the wine.
Okay. Will's been right the whole time.
This is the shift.
And now from this moment on, this movie is insane. this is what this has been building up to. Like, this whole movie has been awkward, tense dialogue to, like, this last 10 to 15 minutes of insanity. Because Miguel goes to save Gina now, because that's his friend. And he gets shot by David.
You just see David walk up with something behind his back. It's a gun, and he blows through the back of Miguel.
I'm just losing my mind. And then Pruitt comes, and he starts talking to David.
He's like, yeah, what are you doing, David? Takes the gun and shoots Troy.
Yeah, the guy just got here. Like, what are you doing? And then everyone just, like, scatter, and they just run.
Yeah, Will kind of knows the house, the layout. So he's kind of telling everybody, he's like, we need to break the glass door to get outside. He's like, oh, it's locked.
And then when they decide to start, like, running downstairs, Sadie slashes Tommy across the chest.
Well, Tommy guns right for her. He's like, you killed Miguel. He runs right for David, and Sadie slices him.
That's a great
as they're running through the house, you just hear noises, so you don't know what's going on with Tommy.
And so now it's just Ben, Kira, and Will downstairs. Will's like, I know where to go. Follow me. Him and Kira go one way, but Ben goes the other way. And you don't see what happens to Ben now.
Yeah, and this is a good moment between Will and Kira. Kind of gives her support. He's like, I'll do whatever it takes to get you out of this. He's like, listen, don't be scared. They're just people.
I like that, because it's like, they're not monsters. They're just ordinary people. They can easily be stopped.
So then they're walking through the house, and they walk past where Eden is, and you see Eden talking to David. And Eden's bothering. She's like, we were not supposed to hurt anyone like that. We were just supposed to all go to sleep. It was supposed to be beautiful. And then David's like, listen, Eden, I need you by my side. He's like, we'll just finish them one step at a time, and then we can finally rest.
So we'll ruin their peaceful send-off, right?
Yes. Will made this descend into chaos, pretty much. Which was good, but, like, they still all died there, which sucks. But so now Will and Kira are hiding in, like, a back room where there's a glass window, and that's when they see Ben get stabbed by the pool.
David and Pruitt.
Yeah, they both double team. I mean, Ben's a big guy. I actually don't think David would have been able to take Ben alone.
Probably not.
Which is why I think Pruitt's here to begin with. I think Pruitt was here in case things went this way.
Probably.
He's just got the huge build, the enforcer.
So as the two, they're walking through the house. They're walking, trying to go upstairs, and the camera pans, and they just see Sadie on the couch, covered in blood.
Holding a fire poker.
Barely breathing. So Will just kind of walks up to her, takes the fire poker, and then they go upstairs.
You have to just leave her dying on the couch.
And this is like them seeing all their friends dead on the floor. They see Gina's body, they see Troy's body.
They see Miguel's body over Gina's body.
He's like, listen, we're going to get to the door to the garage. Will knows where he's going, and then he gets upstairs and he finds out
the door's gone.
The door's no longer there.
So at this point, when the door is missing, Pruitt comes in.
Pruitt walks up slowly up the stairs. They hear footsteps, so they're trying to hide. And it's funny, you just see the enforcer with this really tiny gun.
Huge man and this little tiny pistol in his hand, just slowly walking into the room.
So as Pruitt walks into the room, Will knocks the gun, and they start fighting, and they're tumbling on the floor. Kira kind of runs at Pruitt, and he just belts her away. Pruitt says not to be afraid. There's a plan for us. And then he gets Will into like a headlock, and he's like choking the life out of him. And then Kira just comes and just starches Pruitt in the head with a wine. It's a wine bottle, right?
Yeah, it is.
Several times. I'm thinking this thing's not cracking. This thing's hard, but belts him. And then this is creepy because you hear like a really intense groaning from Pruitt. Mm-hmm. He's like, and she just continually rocks him, and then finally one last crushes him right in the head, and he's done. So they walk out of the room.
And they walk directly into Eden holding a gun.
She turns around and she just shoots Will.
Yeah, right in the shoulder. And then I think she has a moment of like, what am I doing? So she takes the gun, and in the weirdest suicide with a gun I've seen, doesn't shoot herself in the head or in the mouth. She points it directly into her stomach and shoots herself in the stomach.
Yeah, it is very strange. I think part of her maybe is scared. I have no idea. She shoots herself in the...
Unless she wants herself to suffer for what she's done.
Maybe. You know what the thing is? I wonder if... I could be wrong here. You think she was trying to kill Will? Like kill Will to take him to...
Yes. That's why she... I think that's why she specifically shot Will and not Kira.
Yeah, I agree with that.
After she shoots herself, David starts walking up the stairs.
Yeah, Will's like, Kira, get the gun, get the gun.
She gets it. There's no more bullets in the gun.
And you kind of see a shot of Tommy. Tommy's not dead.
No.
By the way. Tommy must have wreaked havoc in that room between him and Dave. You heard someone screaming? Must have not been Tommy. It's probably Sadie.
Yeah.
So he's hiding behind like a wall, and he's getting ready as David's kind of like walking upstairs. And at this point, Will's like, David, we got a gun. And David's like, it's okay. It's time. And Will's like, you don't have to do this. So just as David's walking up the stairs to get to them, Tommy just makes a tumble for David and knocks him down the stairs.
Yeah. And then Tommy makes the hero play and stabs David in the chest.
It's interesting. You thought that conversation between like Will and David would happen, and it doesn't. It's actually somebody else.
Yeah, it's Tommy who saves them. I'll be honest, I like that they kept another character alive.
Yeah, me too.
I like that it wasn't just the couple, like Will and his girlfriend. I like that one of the other people from the party made it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think David and Will were both like two clashing entities. They were both overly perceptive of everything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because Will always like knew something was off, and David always knew that Will knew like that.
It's the classic ex-husband versus the future partner kind of deal.
Yeah, it's like every time like you get divorced from your wife, the next guy's in the cult.
It's always happened. So now they go to Eden, who's bleeding on the floor. She tells him, Will, I miss him. Meaning Tyler, their son. I miss him so much. He starts crying. She apologizes to him, and he holds her bloody hand. So he still has feelings there.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, that because he does carry her outside.
I think that this is the point where you realize that she's never really let go of her son.
Yeah.
Like, as much as she's bought into the cult, if she's feeling this way now in her most vulnerable moment, she really never let go.
Yeah, it's her failed attempted suicide. The cult was just another way for her to justify committing suicide. Which is, it's sad. She's the one cult member, I guess since you know the most about her, you could feel sorry for. Because obviously you don't feel sorry for David or Pruitt or even Sadie. Yeah. See, Sadie, you almost could because you don't know her backstory. It just looks like she has a severe mental illness.
She's like the classic Mansonian, I want to sleep with whoever I want to kind of
exactly
cult member. They honor Eden's request and they carry her outside. Both Will and Kira, who's a great team player. They leave her on the backyard floor, and this is like Eden's last moment alive. She's like, I hope, and then she dies.
Yeah. And then you just see Tommy, Kira, Will standing outside.
Hugging it out.
Yes. And then you hear helicopters.
You hear helicopters. You hear sirens going off.
You hear police. And then the camera pans, and you see red lanterns lit up on different houses across the hills. And then you realize they're all in the cult. And then you realize, wow, Hollywood really is all a cult.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the perfect metaphor for like literally like Hollywood is a cult.
Yeah, it's like every one of Jeffrey Epstein's book people has the lantern out. But no, in all seriousness, it's like it's really cool to see it. It's like how many, because even in the beginning when they first mentioned the invitation, I think it's Ben's like, oh, I know people in the invitation. So it's like
exactly. So this is the night culminating, like Dr. Joseph said in the video. This is the night that their faith is made real. So Will and Kira are holding hands. You hear dogs barking. You hear women screaming. Yeah. You hear sirens going off. You hear gunshots, and then the screen just goes to black.
Yes. So one thing I want to get back to, because now we're at the end. The person that knocks on the door, but you never see who it is, I always kind of assume, since it's not explained, is that it's just maybe one of the other cult members from another house.
Maybe.
Like, seeing, like, how they're doing it, or, like, making sure, like, the right people are there, because maybe it is, like, a ritual, everything has to be organized.
Probably, that's a good theory. Like, maybe you have to remember to put up your red lantern.
Yeah, exactly, or something like that, exactly.
Everybody's doing it!
It's Kill Night in Hollywood.
Yeah. That's The Invitation.
It is a wild movie. It deals with so many complex emotions, a lot that people can relate to. You know, this is one of those movies where, you know, you can write off that these people are crazy, but there's, and to some degree they are with the mass suicide, but you can totally understand why some people would buy into this.
Yeah, alright, so that's why Pruitt, I just think, is crazy. And Sadie. Eden, I don't think is crazy. I think she was just at such a low point in her life, she just grasped onto whatever she could to try to, you know, hang on.
Yeah.
David even, he might not be crazy. David's tough. Like, do you think David was just crazy, or do you think he was kind of like Eden? Like he was just kind of like...
Here are my thoughts. Like, what do cults go after the most? They go after isolated, lonely people who've been through really, really traumatic stuff.
Yeah.
And David was that. He was a coke fiend who was going to probably OD if he didn't buy into something. This was what they sold him.
Yeah.
And he just bought right in. Do I think he's crazy? I don't think so. Like, I don't know. Cults are hard to define. Like, yeah, I guess to some degree you're crazy.
It depends on the person.
To a certain degree, like the level that you're buying into it before you distinguish, wait, this is effed up. But I think for a while, you know, the acceptance, the love you get from a group of people that just have a belief that not a lot of other people share, you're kind of swarmed in.
Yeah, it's tough. That's what cults prey on. They prey on vulnerable people.
Let's discuss our scoring for this movie. I originally, when I watched this for the first time like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It came out 2015. I think I saw it like 2016, 2017. I liked this movie. I gave it a 7, but after rewatching it recently, I upgraded my score to an 8. This movie is just so deep. The build-up was great, and it's very relatable on a human level. Very transcendent to me.
There we go again.
Here's that word.
No, yeah, it deals with trauma. It deals with loss in a way that felt very real. And I think the biggest plus for this movie was how awkward it was how uncomfortable it was.
I agree. I also gave it an 8. It doesn't give you the satisfaction of knowing if something is really wrong or not until the last 15 minutes. Because there's a bunch of questionable things, but it leaves you like with this, I don't know, this constant anxiety and anticipation. Like something is definitely bad here. It's just it's a great experience. So I gave it an 8 too. I thought it was just an overall great movie.
So I'm in the same boat as Brian. I originally gave this movie a 7 when I first saw it, probably like a few months after it released. I rewatched it now just the last couple days, and I've bumped my score to an 8 as well. I just think it's, just from start to finish, it's such a well-told story of like loss and grief and the different ways of dealing with it, and it's just such a good suspense film. It's so much build and wondering, is Will's grief just too much and that's why he's seeing these things? Or is there something actually wrong? Until where Damon said, yeah, then you know something's wrong and it all just comes down on you all at once.
Exactly.
It's a slow burn, and it's a very well done slow burn.
Yeah, I think that some movies need to be a slow burn because the build-up is that much more impactful once you get there.
Yeah.
Everything being set up from the very beginning, I think it's cool. There's some parts that are real tip-offs. I didn't really think about it until I kind of read more about the movie. You know, there's a lot of wine at the party, and throughout the whole movie, they're being poured from the wine bottle. Except at the end, they're actually poured from a decanter. And this is one of the tip-offs for Will that, you know, this is something dangerous.
You never trusted decanter, especially when the guy pouring it said the word transcend.
What is a decanter?
It's like a olden bottle kind of. Not a bottle.
Yeah,
it's like
a metal
canteen. Yeah, it's almost like a canteen.
Okay.
So a little bit of trivia, like I always like to give.
Yeah, you're the trivia guy here.
Not a lot for this movie, but Zachary Quinto, Luke Wilson, and Topher Grace were originally cast in major roles.
I'm just trying to think of Topher Grace in this film.
He'd be hot regardless.
I mean, I love Topher Grace. I wonder if he would have been like Will. Actually, no. Topher Grace would have been David. I can see Topher Grace being like a David.
I think Luke Wilson would have been Will.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think Zachary Quinto probably would have been David, and I don't know, Topher Grace maybe.
I can see Topher Grace as David. I think he could be that like soft-spoken, overly nice guy. You think he has
you're right. Yeah, I could see that. There's one person I definitely would never have recasted in this movie, and that's John Carroll Lynch's Pruitt. I think he is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite part of this movie is when they're playing the game. Oh, my God. And he's just like, let me tell you about my wife. Like, he just cuts the roll and just goes right into
Jumps right in and just complete silence.
He literally beats you over the head with that story. It's just...
So let's talk cults. What do you think the Invitation cult is based off of?
What do you mean exactly?
So, there's so many known cults out there.
Well, okay. Oh, you mean like a real life cult?
Yeah,
well, it's
cult.
definitely based off of the Jim Jones cult because they have the drink at the end of the movie, the mass suicide. It also could be based off of that because if you know anything about the Jim Jones cult, certain people didn't drink when they were supposed to at the end of it, and they were being gunned down, exactly like the film.
So a lot of people related to the Heaven's Gate cult. Do you know the Heaven's Gate cult? Everyone was like worshipping UFOs that they would take them and take them away. And it was another one where like they were drinking wine to all die, so then they would be in one of the UFOs. Okay. So like it was another huge mass suicide. A lot of people also compare the cult because they mention like their free love in Mexico, especially Sadie's a great example of this. To the Manson family cult, is what I was mentioning before.
Like you said, and we've all said, Sadie is just a straight up Manson family member. Oh yeah, like that's exactly what her character is based off of.
Yeah, it's exactly her feel.
Overall, this was a great experience, a great movie.
I think a lot of people would enjoy this movie. It sets an interesting tone right from the beginning, as Damien mentioned. Right as they're driving up, they hit a coyote, and it just does not get easier from there.
No. That's what I said. That's the most pleasant scene of the movie.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's not pleasant at all.
No. So I think that's it today. Shane, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we are going to kick off the summer right, and we are going to talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer.
And I'm going to be honest, I always like talk about hot movies. This is the hottest horror movie probably ever.
Yeah, because it stars Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Love her.
Dib.
You can't just dib by saying you got to see her. To dib.
I know.
That's not what you do.
There are rules to dib law. We'll probably get into that next episode.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ever dibbed already. Anyway.
We'll see about that.
It stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Ryan Philippe?
Yes, I think it is.
Mr. Cruel Intentions himself,
Hell
Sebastian.
Yeah. Wait, Sarah Michelle Gellar was also Cruel Intentions.
Did they come out in the same year?
I actually don't know when Cruel Intentions came out. I think this
late
came out...
90s.
Yeah, so did this.
Very late 90s.
Wait, Cruel Intentions might have been 99.
Yeah, I think so.
So this was 98?
Might have been 97, 98. I don't know. Yeah, it's around the same year.
We'll figure it out, obviously, by the time the review comes out. So we talked about Cabin in the Woods being a hot cast.
This is going to be super duper hot. Like Shane in Amsterdam.
But, yeah. Like we said, super hot cast. I can't wait to talk about that film.
Me neither.
It's the best way to start off the summer. And I guess I'm going to drop this information now. After we do I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm not going to reveal the movies yet, but me and Brian are going to do a theme summer camp movies.
How else are you going to kick off the summer? There's no better way than to do it with 80s camp movies.
Yes. Start thinking of summer camp movies that you would enjoy, because there's a good chance we're going to be reviewing them.
Absolutely.
We got 5 of them lined up.
Please
so.
tweet them at us. Tweet them at us. We'll weigh them, but we have 5 lined up, and we can make some considerations for sure.
Yeah. If someone tweets at us something like we haven't seen before and we check it out and we like, we'll throw it in the rotation.
Please make sure to follow us on Twitter at 2guys1necro, and also give us a like on our Facebook page.
Yes, both of those things will be greatly appreciated.
And we want to give a special thank you to my brother Damien for being with us here today and reviewing the invitation.
Yeah, it was good to have you on. Good to have a third voice.
I had a blast. Yeah, I love this movie, and maybe again when you guys will let me on again, I'll give you my input on the next movie.
I know exactly what movie we're going to invite you on for. It's a movie I haven't mentioned to Brian yet about reviewing, so it'll be down the road a little bit. But we'll review Stay Alive.
I love that movie.
I know.
That's up for debate.
We have to do it for Damien.
For Damien, yes.
No time soon, but it will come eventually. Stay Alive review.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Everybody watch it.
So we are 2 guys, 1 Necronomicon signing off, and we will see you next week down by the docks.
Well, this is it for 2 Guys, 1 Necronomicon. Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to visit our Twitter page, our Facebook page. Follow us, give us a like. We'd love to hear from you and talk horror movies.